We're in the midst of a huge transformation where our peers, communities, and workplaces are all really melding into one. Welcome to Reimagining Company Culture. My name is Christina Giordano, she, her, and hers, and I am the Senior Partnerships Manager here at AllVoices. Today, I am very excited to welcome our next guest onto the interview series, Rima Badawiya. She is the Partner and Chief Diversity Partner at Lewis Brisbois. Rima, thank you so much for being here. If you want to share a little bit about yourself for our listeners, including your pronouns, and when you were younger, do you remember how exactly you answered the question, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Absolutely. Good morning. Hi, Christina. I'm so happy to join you today. Thank you for having me. So my pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I think when I was asked a kid, what do you want to be? I said a lawyer. And here I am today. I'm a lawyer. So I never changed my focus. I always wanted to be a lawyer. So I guess in many ways I get to live out my dream. My dream job. And this is certainly that dream job. So I'm happy.
That's awesome. I feel like not everyone gets it. They're living their dream job, and that's really special. And the work that you're doing is so important. It affects the lives of a lot of folks too, especially since we spend so much time working on average too. I want to start off with kind of a broad question around what are the kind of key pillars or North Star, if you will, of the diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy at Lewis Brisbois.
Sure. So, one of I think the key things for Lewis Brisbois for my mission and our mission here is to remain open, flexible, and curious. Never assume that we've learned it all, that we know everything, never assume we've done it all. Continually, I guess, be surprised and open to different possibilities. Our strategy is to acknowledge that we're on a journey with no final destination, if you will. I think that's the key thing, creating an environment where every person at Lewis Brisbois, whether it's a lawyer or a staff person that we have or a head of any of our departments, that they have the tools to succeed and to remain flexible.
Absolutely. People feel like they are valued, that their work is valued, and they have the tools to succeed, and expectations set from the beginning, a continuous conversation. I agree that it is a journey, and each person and each company is at a different part of that journey too. And you have the aspirations where you are today. Where would you say the firm is in the equity journey, and where would you like to be, let's say, a year from
now? Well, it's we're working on it. We certainly, there's a lot to do, and there will continuously be, I think, a lot to do as we create an environment where everybody feels that they have equity potential in the firm. One of the things we're focusing on is looking at our institutional policies and practices to identify, any obstacles that may lead to people's being part of that equity journey and achieving equity, not just equity partnership in the firm, but also having those opportunities for people that have not traditionally had representation, marginalized groups, making sure that everybody feels that they have the tools to succeed on the journey in a law firm with the traditional challenges that you would have in a law firm, just to make sure. And it's a conscious desire to make sure that we're creating that space. It doesn't happen organically. It has to be intentional. And that's, where our focus is, in making sure we realize that and we act accordingly. By having, for instance, groups, the firm has grown. Today, we're the 6th largest firm in the country. One of the ways that we've grown as a firm is we identify law firms that are successful, let's say in Salt Lake City, Utah, or in Reno, Nevada, or in Roanoke, Virginia. And these are traditional areas that are not as diverse as we are. And so in the past, when we accumulate those offices, they help us grow as a firm. But our diversity, because those areas are not as diverse, our numbers have tended to decline. So we're focused on correcting that by now, or just acknowledging what has happened so that we can address it and we can look at how we can overcome and create, more diversity in those areas. One of the things we have now is we have what we call a lateral committee, where when we're looking at having firms come into the Lewis Brisbois fold, we are also considering that we have diverse partners on that committee, and we're looking at diversity as we bring in other people to Lewis Brisbois, things of that nature. So.
I think that is really important to highlight as well with the platform of Lewis Brisbois, and really being intentional, supporting with actions as well when you're thinking about representation, when you're thinking about support and those expectations, tools for success. As a former employee resource group leader or affinity group leader, I definitely want to ask about what role do affinity groups play in your diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy? And we talk about opportunities, and what role do they not play as well in terms of defining?
Sure. So affinity group program is just beginning and getting off the ground for us here at Lewis Brisbois. It's in the initial stages. We formed an LGBTQ affinity group about a year ago, and it's to create a safe environment. And we're hoping that we will have more affinity groups grow out of that. Right now, they're not involved in the governing, if you will, of the law firm, but they are an opportunity for the firm to get advice and counsel and to do better as far as our DEI initiatives. And just to basically hear from the diversity of the firm, what they're looking at, what they're looking to do, and how we can improve.
I think that is really important to kind of share also, and kind of the what stage that you're at as well, in terms of opening up opportunities for folks to raise their hand to be members of the affinity groups, in terms of everybody at the firm as well. How do you encourage really others, especially leaders and partners, to have an ownership mentality around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and hold everybody accountable to those goals and the vision for the future?
Well, it's it's a continuous effort. Like I said, it's a grassroots process. Everybody has to feel that they're part of the process, and we're never going to get to the point where we're done. It's over, mission accomplished, everybody, you can go home now. So it's just really instilling that philosophy from the new people that we bring on the firm, the associates that we have in the firm, and our partnership, and just continuing to not just talk about it, but actually match our words with actions. And it's a continuous process, so that people feel that they're engaged in this law firm. They feel that they have a place to grow, to succeed in the law firm. And so it's really, we do a lot of phone calls with the practice group leaders. We're involved with the clients, and we're as a law firm. It's amazing too. One of the drivers of our diversity efforts has been that it's been client driven, because clients want to know that you are doing things to create a diverse environment. I've had, one client after another. I practice in the healthcare space, so I have a lot of institutionalized clients that say, look, our hospital system represents so many diverse people, and we want our legal counsel to represent that diversity, to reflect that diversity. It's no longer good enough. Status quo is not good enough. There's all kinds of different people. There's people from many different marginalized groups. And we want the counsel to be reflected in that manner. And so that's one of the key drivers, is instilling that it's not only the right thing to do, to recognize that everybody brings something to the table, and some people, because of their race or sexual orientation, they've been marginalized and they haven't had a seat at the table. So you want to acknowledge that and create the opportunity where they can. But you also, for a lot of the companies and even the people that may not necessarily be so focused on the mission that we are on DEI, is that it is for your organization today to succeed financially and to have that kind of success, you need to also, be mindful of these client goals, and the focus on having this very diverse environment, that it'll lead to more success. It'll lead to creativity, thinking outside the box, especially when you're talking about the law. There's one of the reasons why I was driven to the law is there's a lot of gray area, right? And it allows for creativity. And I bring something, with my diversity that may be different than somebody else. And it's sharing that knowledge, so that, people feel that they can be inspired and part of that process.
Absolutely. Part of that process. And I think it's great to really highlight that it's really important to think about this from a holistic perspective. And we're talking about external clients, internal with employees, partners, associates, and really everybody, when we're talking about whether it is day one at the firm or year 20 as well.
Yeah.
Part of that process is also not having all of the answers right away. Everyone has that growth mentality as well. How do you kind of help with those resources and tools, and specifically with equipping partners to address potentially hard conversations with associates of the team as well?
Well, we're a resource. The diversity committee is a big resource, and we constantly have practice group leaders, different partners reach out with those tough questions and ask, how can we do it? We also, the firm developed in the last couple of years, we've worked with vendors to create training programs. So we have a diversity training program, like California law and other law requires us to do other types of training, like workplace, create hostile workplace environment, those kinds of trainings. And so we've incorporated, even though we didn't have to, we've incorporated DEI training as well, firm-wide. And it's a 5-minute training that associates, partners, and staff can log on to, and it can, help with, how you encounter these issues, how you encounter and deal with bias, implicit bias, microaggressions, all those kinds of things. And also besides the training, just having the opportunity to know that we have resources that are available through the committee. Across the country, we have partners that sit on the committee that are a resource for people to talk to ask questions. We also have the Women's Initiative that the firm has developed. So there are many resources that the firm has in which people can reach out and ask any questions. We've got a fantastic human resources department. So there's lots of resources in order to address those kinds of concerns.
Yeah, a lot of avenues for training to have these conversations, and really to make sure people have what they need, again, to be successful in their role and navigate these conversations. You mentioned this a little bit earlier as well, in terms of being the, I think, 6th largest firm in the country as well, and kind of what you're doing in terms of representation. But definitely want to ask you directly too, what opportunity do you see Lewis Brisbois having in setting really an industry standard in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Well, I think, again, it's part of this process. We, as a law firm, we have the challenges that most law firms have, but we can also be a leader in this space. And I think it's important to myself and the folks that are on the diversity committee and the leadership of the firm that we match our words with actions, and that this is meaningful. That we don't just give lip service in a climate today, especially in a post, George Floyd climate that brought out a lot of the racial inequities that are present in our country. That we continue to really focus on that racial disparity and doing something to advance the needle and move it forward. And I think every organization, every company wants to do that. And we're no, law firms because, in some ways we're, we have our thumb on the law, really. We are, we're supposed to, implement, follow the law, figure out, what it is and kind of guardians of the law. So we should carry the torch as far as promoting and addressing the inequities and making sure that we, as a law firm, we create an environment where people want to be part of it. People want to work, especially today, I think, in a post-COVID climate where people are switching jobs and switching employers, and there's this tremendous work, turnover. So here we want to concentrate on how do you create an environment where people want to stay, where they feel happy, they feel seen, they feel heard, and they have the tools to succeed. And that's what our focus is through all of the DEI initiatives, and and making sure everybody just feels that they have all the tools that they need to succeed here, and that they have people that look like them, that have succeeded here, and there's opportunities. And we're not just paying lip service. So I guess that's the most important message. We're not just paying lip service to all of those great ideals. We're actually trying to live it every day as a law firm.
Yeah, you want to live the values, and we're talking,
Absolutely.
a lot around tactics and strategies and trainings, which I think is really important to this conversation. I think when we're talking about the ways in which we have tools, and the way people want to feel seen, heard, and understood. People want to know, how do we know if we're doing a good job? We know moving the needle doesn't change overnight, but it's important to do every day, every year, to meet those goals and continue forward on the process. In your experience, what is your philosophy around measuring diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging initiatives and strategies, knowing that just because we hit these goals doesn't mean we're not going to think about this next year, but what gets measured and what's working, we want to double down on too.
Right. Well, I mean, we know if it's working, if people stay, right? I mean, that's the biggest, in with the challenges that we just talked about, and and you're right, is how can we measure the success? Sometimes it's hard to measure. But I think, one of the things I look at myself is I have been with this firm for almost 20 years. So I came to Lewis Brisbois as an associate, and today I'm an equity partner, meaning I have a little bit, a tiny bit of ownership in the firm, which is amazing. And I serve in this amazing role as the chief diversity partner. And so I think, and as I look around me, and some of the folks that I have worked with for, many years that came to the firm as associates today, two females that I've worked very closely with and are part of my team came to the firm as associates. Today, they're partners with the firm. They've been with the firm, each of them over 10 years. So those are just great examples I can give you on in my world. But we have 1,600 lawyers, and that the ability to retain lawyers on a wide scale basis is also a measure of how successfully we're carrying out that DEI mission. And also not just retaining, but recruiting. It's a consistent effort, and it's realizing that you're never going to be done, right? That's the whole thing. You have to be flexible. You have to change with the times. Today, we have a somewhat of a hybrid of people who come to the office, work at home. just be able to be flexible and change with the times in order to create an environment where we're really, um, living out those DEI goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I definitely agree with you as well in terms of, are people staying, are people growing, are people being promoted? Do they have ownership within the organization? Do people feel empowered to do their best work as well? And just understanding those stories and qualitative feedback as well is also kind of a marker of that success and what's working. But again, doesn't mean we don't kind of put forth, new strategies each year as well, and continue to be agile. So we've talked about some of the things that you could do to really double down on your diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy, especially in regards to the industry. Are there any common mistakes you're seeing, firms make in their DEI strategy as well, just in terms of, even with the best intentions?
I think sometimes being complacent. I think a good example is of a mistake that we made, that I talked about a little bit earlier, was with the growth of our firm and the way we grew, with the bringing on firms that are not in diverse areas. Because prior to that, when you looked at our matrix and you looked at our numbers, we were consistently ranked in the top 10 of the law firms as far as diversity, equity, and inclusion in those metrics. And then and that's what I said, that was kind of part of the organic approach, just seeing where, just letting it happen, if you will. And I think we've learned from that mistake, you can't just let it happen, because it's not going to happen. You have to actually do it. And so I think that's a great example of a mistake that we made, that we're now, working really hard to remedy that you have to be conscious about the firms that you bring on, how you grow the firm, how you make sure that you're growing in areas, if it's, in areas that, of course, it's not anything we're doing, but it may not be as diverse. Different parts of the country, that you're mindful of what you need to do to create that diversity. So it's just being mindful that this process is not going to happen organically. A lot of folks, also we're big, so there's differing opinions. It's dealing with that difference of opinion where some folks may say, well, we are diverse. We're already there. We've achieved it. We don't have to do anything else. And the pushback is no, or clients that are saying, we want more diversity here. We want, attorneys that are more diverse, that practice in this area or in that area. And so you can't basically, let your guard down. You've got to constantly be mindful that this is an ongoing process. And in order to have the best law firm possible, and the best people possible, and provide the best representation for our clients, we're always going to have to be intentional in, how we recruit, how do we retain, and how do we afford people those opportunities to want to be here and to stay here. So.
Absolutely, not being complicit, and also making the intentional, strategies to make sure people feel seen, heard, and understood, and being able to really kind of pivot, or the next year see what we do better as well, and asking ourselves these questions. Rima, is there anything that I didn't specifically ask that you want to share with folks listening, or underscore any key takeaways about the things that we discussed today? Definitely want to pass the mic back to you.
Well, I just, a couple of things. I just want to reiterate, I think it's important that we match our words with our actions, because that's very important, and to further these goals. And the one personal thing, besides being a lawyer, I didn't know I wanted to do this when I was a lot younger, but I will tell you, as a female, I get asked about this all the time. I have 3 kids, 3 amazing young adult kids. And they're they're the greatest thing I've ever done in my life. So I think, you can have this awesome career and you can be a mom. And I want to share that with your audience because I get asked that a lot by especially young women who are just starting their law school journey. And it is possible. And today, I mean, there's so many different ways of how we carry out all of the different, goals that we may have. And I think it's a lot easier with the, look at us, we're just doing this interview virtually. So in many ways, it's a lot easier. So I think that's the only thing I would add.
I really appreciate you sharing that and taking the time to be on Reimagining Company Culture. I really enjoyed our conversation today.
Thank you so much.
Of course, and as a reminder for folks who are listening, at All Voices, we really believe in employees and employers being seen, heard, and understood, and know it's a requirement for the business to really succeed overall. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you.